Alright, so this is Illustrator. Looks very similar to Photoshop. A lot of ways, it's broken up in the same way. You'll have tools on your left. You have option windows on your right. You've got an option bar at the top, which changes according to which tool you have selected and gives you access to a lot of the same things that show up over here on the right, but it's contextual, so you don't have to hunt for them. You just pick the tool. You're like, oh, I want the pen tool. Well, I don't have a document up, so it'll change for the pen tool. You have different workspaces that you can configure Illustrator to, depending on what you're doing. For what we're doing, Essentials is just fine, so you can always reset Essentials. I think all it did for me was just collapse that one. Click it and expand it out, do whatever you need to. So creating a new document. Sometimes you'll probably be greeted with a wizard, like a little pop-up dialog that says, hey, make a new document, here's all your options. I turned mine off because it's kind of annoying. But this is essentially what it looks like. If you've done something recently, it will show your recents. But you've got different outputs up here at the top: mobile, web, print, film, and video. For what we're doing right now, let's stick with print. Actually, you know what? Yeah, let's stick with print. If we do that now, we're not really doing that. We're kind of doing like an odd one. All right, just stick with print. That's fine. I just want you to have a big enough workspace, because like these sizes don't matter for our beginning tabloid size, so you can create it to be whatever you want. I'm going to change mine to be pixels for units. I'm just going to make it 1,000 pixels by 1,000 pixels. I just want a square workspace. All right. It doesn't matter how you're working, because the way the logo, how we're going to use the logo and the outputs we're going to do for the logo don't depend on the document size and shape. Okay, because you'll just put the logo on whatever document that you want. And this is just for your initial artboard. You can create more artboards of this dimension here in this wizard. Artboards are just working spaces inside of your Illustrator document. And then our color mode, since this is technically for print, but it's also print and screen, keep it in CMYK. All right, because of the business card aspect of it, we're not going to be printing these, but keep it in CMYK. All right, hit OK. So we have one workspace. If you want, you can change the colors of the interface here. Go to Preferences, User Interface. There's a couple different versions, different brightnesses that you can go. So if you don't like the dark one, then you can change it. This canvas color, this outside space, if you want, you can either have it match the user interface brightness or just go straight to white. Sometimes having it on white is nice because you don't have to have stuff inside the artboard. You can work off on the canvas as well, or like move things away and put them on the canvas, and it's helpful to have that be the same color as your artboard. I know some people work this way. I do sometimes. I never work with my interface this bright. It's very weird looking. Usually I'm around here in these, depending on my mood. So yeah, there's not much difference there. Okay, so yeah, I think we're gonna work with our canvas white. So okay, so here's my artboard. Zooming and getting around is kind of the same as Photoshop. Spacebar for your hand to grab it and move your canvas around. Hold Option in your mouse wheel to zoom in and out. As far as your tools go, in Photoshop we have just one selection and move tool. Remember, it's the arrow with the little cross on it, with the arrows, the directional arrows. So you can grab layers and move the stuff around inside that layer. In Photoshop or in Illustrator, we have two selection arrows. We have an overall selection tool, which will just select the entire object, right? And then we have a direct selection tool, and this will select individual anchors in an object. So for instance, if I have, I'm just going to make a shape. I'll make a complex shape here. All right, if I have some sort of radial sun like this, if I want to select the whole thing and move it around, I will get the direct selection tool, and that will let me move the whole thing around. If I just want to take part of it and skew it, or like just mess with a certain part of it, then I get my direct selection arrow, drag a box, it only selects those parts, and now I can play with those parts. So you can take basic shapes and modify them in order to get new shapes. All right. With what we're doing, V is the keyboard shortcut for that. Direct selection tool. A is the keyboard shortcut for the. I'm sorry. V is the one for the regular selection tool. A is for direct. If you do mouse over most of the tools, they'll give you the keyboard shortcut. So for what we're doing, we're going to be messing with text a lot. We're going to put some text objects in. We want our type window character. It's Command T. This gives us a window to select the font that we want to use. The drop down will give you a preview of what the fonts look like. For this, you can pick any font you want, really. It's up to you. You just need to bear in mind kind of the principles. I have no idea what I want this to look like. Zoom in, so it says Lorem Ipsum. We'll call this, I don't know, somebody give me a word. Anything. Fish? Fish. It's actually a good word for fish. Or a good typeface for fish. So I'm gonna, my transform tools are the same, right? No, we don't want area type. Type can happen in a bunch of different ways. I've got an area type tool, so we'll try to fill a shape. Type on a path tool, vertical type tool, vertical area type tool, vertical type on a path tool. And, there's a lot. For the most part, you're going to deal with just the regular type option. Once you have maybe like a default font out, you're like, oh, I kind of like this font, but I want to modify it maybe a little bit. A good way to do that is to then create outlines out of this, to convert this to outlines. Like right now, it's a type tool. If I hit Command Y and go into my outline mode, it doesn't change. But you can see it up here at the top. Like watch the tab, how it's changing, right? Right. GPU preview is showing me all the effects, okay, and outline is showing me paths. Now, if I put another shape down real quick. All right, so this is GPU preview. Right, fill is the black fill and no stroke. Right, that's what this indicates. If I go into outline mode, that changes. Okay. See the anchor for the type shows up. This little X. That's the anchor for the type. Right, it goes away when I go back into preview mode, etc. You can see that the path is this blue line. This is the path for the type object. Okay, it's just this straight little line here. But maybe I want to modify this font to be my logo. I want to stylize it and make it look different. You can right click on it and go to outline. No, you can't. Never mind. It used to be in there. Can I do it now? Did I have? Yeah, now I can do it. I didn't have it selected, sorry. Select it, you can go to create outlines. And now because I am in, I must have deleted my star. Because now I'm in preview mode, I see the paths now, right? The type is now a path. Right? And this is different if I get an option here. Right? So this is preview mode, this is outline mode, right? This is a path object now. This is a type object now. I can use my type tool and go in here and edit this. Whoosh. Right? I can't use my type tool and come over here and edit this one. I can't drop it anymore. It's not a type object anymore. But I can grab my direct selection tool and start playing around with it as shapes. Oops. I can grab these two. And round out those corners a little bit. And what I'm doing to do that is I'm grabbing these and then grab that little circle there, and that rounds that shape. So maybe I'm like, oh, I like this font, but it needs to be a little softer. I don't want the hardness of it there. So I grab those two, I round it. You get the idea. Now it's a lot. Actually, now it looks like it better. I like it more than it was before. It's a little more consistent, right? Command Y back into outline mode. you know, I can swap it. Maybe like I want to see the strokes. The stroke options are over here on this triple line. If you want more options though, because right now it's just showing me weight, but maybe I want to change how everything, how my stroke is being applied. So there's a couple different things. That weight showing up in, pixels, I guess. Oh, because I converted over to pixels. It'll be pixels or points. Zoom tight. That's the thickness, right? I can increase that weight. That blue line is the path. So you can see that it's showing up evenly on either side of the path, right? You can change that. You can align the stroke to the outside, or I'm sorry, the inside. And that's the outside. Okay. Corners. How are corners handled? Are they sharp corners? Are they rounded corners? Are they beveled corners? We don't really have any corners right now, but if I took, you know, if I made another shape here, so I've got sharp corners on this shape. Let's move it over real quick by our menu. All right, I'll zoom in. So I've got sharp corners on this one, but maybe I want rounded corners, or I want beveled corners, right? Very easy to change that. Caps, this is how a point ends. So if we have like this tool, grab my direct, see how my, so I'm toggling back and forth with the cursor between direct selection, which is a sort of gray or white arrow, and just overall selection, which is your black one. So I'm going to grab that anchor there, oops, sorry, with my direct selection tool. See, it's filled in blue. These are not filled in. I'm going to delete it so that I just have this line. I come back in. So this is what it does when you just have a fill. That's that feature I was talking about, where it'll just do a straight line. You know, it tries to still fill the shape. But if we look at it as just a path, you know, we just have those two lines. Okay, so it's an open path, right? Well, the cap for this, how these line ends end. Right now you can see we've got it just stops right there. You can round it to get a nice cleaner shape, or you can have it extend beyond and get that kind of cap, right? So there's lots of different ways you can treat those. So see how, okay, so I'm doing this on the outside here. Yeah, so that's what my actual shapes are like. But I've applied the stroke for these on the outside. Let me change it up here. Oops. Let's change it back to middle maybe. Yeah, we could do that. But now that these are individual shapes, they're grouped together. Right, our layers are right here. So you'll see there's just one layer. Everything in Illustrator is an object. Okay, and the objects sit on layers. So as opposed to Photoshop, where everything is pixels on a layer, right? Everything in Illustrator are objects, type objects, shape objects, path objects, whatever, on layers. You can have lots of different layers, but you can also have lots of different objects on one layer. Okay, each layer will be colored differently. This one is blue, so those lines are blue. If I make a new layer, it's red. So if I grab like, let me grab this H here, cut it, come up to my second layer, paste it, see how it's outlined in red now? That's telling me that it's on a different layer. Make sense? All right, so the H is on a different layer than the S here. You can still do stuff with them, but they're on different layers. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now, a really effective way to create interesting new shapes, oh, I don't have that one, I don't, is to select everything. Oh jeez, come on. There we go. Select all of one shape, and then kind of overlap it with other shapes. That, or we could go like, just take this part, extend it out there. So I'm just trying to overlap things right now to make them match. Don't like how that line is kind of trying to create like a flat line here, so I'm arbitrarily moving some points. So everything looks really messy in preview mode. All right. Let's lock that one. Looks really messy there. Anyway, so I'm going to overlap these parts and maybe grab these and move it to give me some space in here, right? But I want to clean this up because in preview, obviously it looks terrible. In in outline it looks terrible. In preview it also looks terrible. You know, maybe I want to have a nice clean outline of these shapes. I don't really care how messy it is here on the inside. So what you can do is you can use your Pathfinder tools. All right, there they go. So you can always go to Window, go to Pathfinder. These Pathfinder tools let you combine shapes. So you can combine, unite them and get sort of an outline. You can delete the front object from the back object to create a new shape on the back object. You can just grab where they intersect, right? So if you have like two circles, like a Venn diagram, right? Like two circles overlapping each other, you can just save the middle part. Does that make sense? Where they overlap. Or you can just save the outside part and exclude the middle part. So lots of different ways you can do this. What we're going to do is grab all of these, and we're going to do just the outline. So see how that cleans it up? It gives me kind of that shape. And if I bring my weight down a little bit, it'll probably clean it up even more. Give me some negative space here to kind of resolve that. Maybe the top part of the eye was not the best idea right there. So, but yeah, so that's one way. Actually, let's go back and change that. So like, oh, I don't like that. So I'm just going to Command Z it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click into here and grab that circle, I think. Yeah. Let's grab my direct selection tools. I'm going to deselect that part. Come here. All right, let's go to our layers and start locking some things. All right, lock the F, lock the S. I'm just moving the I. So direct selection, grab these guys, move it over a little bit, maybe like here. Come back, grab our S, move this back. So those kind of keep that line, and then maybe we'll mess with our F now. If you want to select something here in layers and have it be an object you select in your workspace, you need to hold Option and select that layer. I just combined it. You can do Option Shifts and all that stuff. So I'm going to grab this part of the F and extend it out like a long nose. All right, so they're overlapping now. I can grab them. Let's get out of group mode. Grab them, hit Unite. That gives us a nice little shape. So using your Pathfinder tools will be really helpful, right? To go from a type object to a shape object to a customized shaped object. It is completely okay to take an existing font and change it for your logo, right? As long as you're changing it. Okay. Not all fonts are going to look good this way. So it probably needs to be a little thinner because it was kind of killing. Like here on this H, this descender for the H, that looks really terrible when it's a lot thicker. Like maybe I want the super thick line, but see how close that's getting there? Well, let's bring it up a little bit, and then we will adjust the anchors to match kind of how that curve is, so we don't have that goofy bump right there. Oh, my anchors are overlapping. All right, so that brings it up a little bit, and it's not touching anymore, which helps. These are still a little too tight, but whatever. So does that kind of make sense, how you can do some of that stuff? Okay. Yeah, so there's lots of different effects you can do. I'm trying to think what else is kind of important here. So you need text, at least 2 words, simple shapes, lines, unique vector shapes made with the pen tool. The pen tool here So instead of like there is a brush tool, so you can like freehand stuff, and then it will clean up as a vector, right? The pen tool lets you be a little more deliberate in how you're. Let me move these guys off to the side. The pen tool lets you be a lot more deliberate in how you're creating shapes. So you drop a point, and you're like, oh yeah. You can hold shift to constrain that point to 45-degree rotation around, so you get straight lines. If you just click and let go, you get a straight line. If you click and hold and drag, then you get that anchor. Okay. You see how it's sort of like trying to show me what my line is going to look like now based off of that anchor I just dropped. Do that. So you can get kind of way more complex shapes this way. Yeah, I don't know. Just kind of messing around. If you just double click, nope, never mind. And then click over here to close it. This is, of course, going to be terrible because it's overlapping, so we get kind of some weirdness going on here. But you can fix that by clicking and dragging. If you do decide that you don't want these sort of sharp areas, there is a anchor point tool here, Shift C, where you can click on it and drag and pull out those weights to kind of smooth those corners around. All right, so this would give you kind of a custom shape to play with. So maybe, this is gigantic, but so maybe this is like, I don't know, like an A or something. I don't know. Now my stroke got really small. I was trying to think of a way to like turn it into part of the fish, or it's an H. It's the H part. There we go. Look, it's the H. Yay. So if you want to take existing letters and turn them into abstract shapes or whatever, you can draw them with your pen tool. You can draw lots of other things with the pen tool. I'm not super concerned on this project that you use the pen tool for anything really complex, because we're going to be doing a lot with the pen tool in the next project. You're going to be working primarily with the pen tool. So for the logo assignment, it's more important that you know how to put type down and play with the type and move the type around. If you do want to try to make like the next swoosh, right, then by all means, this is going to look terrible already, I can tell. By all means, try to make a swoosh. That's really bad. That's terrible. But yeah, I messed it up there. Shift C, drag this out, kind of curve it just a little. I don't know. I don't know what's going on anymore. This is really bad. Yeah, something like that. Grab your A tool to kind of mess with it. It's so messed up now. Anyway, really bad swoosh, but you get the idea, right? Like you can draw your shapes. I'm more concerned with type. Lines, yes, you're going to be using lines. Gradients. So here's the thing about gradients. Gradients are really overused and can be used terribly and are used terribly. There are some instances where they're not used terribly. I actually have a Pinterest board called actually not bad uses of gradients. It's descriptive, right? Where I collect uses of gradients that aren't terrible. Actually good use of gradients. So there's some fun stuff like that where they get kind of complex. Geometric gradients, actually this would be probably good for this assignment. This is building off the ideas of continuation from Gestalt. So it's a gradient, but it's a gradient in the sense that the object is changing linearly, like it's changing in equal steps from one part of the object to the other part of the object. So this is like a sunrise, that's a sun, or a sunset, either one. And the light is breaking up. So you can pick a geometric shape and easily do this. Yep. Actually, this would be a good one. So if we want to do something like this, the best way to build something like this would be to take a shape, like this is going to be your default shape, right? Your main shape. And you want to make a gradient of this. So we're going to do a square gradient. So effect, distort and transform, and we're going to use transform. And then what we're going to scale here, or how we're going to use this transform, and I'll turn on preview. What this does is it lets us make a bunch of copies. So maybe like 5 copies. You tab out of it. Now there are 5 copies here. It's just that they're sitting on top of each other. All right. Let's give them some space. But maybe we want to scale them down, make them thinner as we go, and let's say by like 75%. Right. So that gets us there kind of right away. You can increase the number and get down to that nice gradient, right? That builds us a pretty nice, decent linear gradient. However, what this is doing is we have one object, one main object, and then this effect that's put on it. So these aren't objects that we can edit or do anything to right now. Okay. In order to change that so that we could maybe drop like a triangle on them, that's my gradient tool, sorry. You know, drop a, when you grab the star tool, if you just hit the arrow keys, the up and down arrow keys, you add or subtract points. Okay, so I have this triangle that I want to put on top of, like maybe I want a triangle gradient. Let's do, oops. Let's pull it out a little bit there. Okay. So I want to cut the gradient into a triangle, essentially, like a cookie cutter, right? So in order to get that, you can use your Pathfinder tools, right? But because I only have this one shape, it's not going to work. So if I grab both of these and I come up, collapsed. I go to my Pathfinder and I say I want to keep the intersection, right, where the middle of them. It's only going to give me this top part up here because that was the only actual object. Does that make sense to everybody? In order to get all of these rest to like sort of make the effect real is to go to Object and hit Expand Appearance. All right, this Expand Appearance just sets the effects in stone. You can't change the effects after that again. Like you can come over here to this little icon, this little like circle with the dotted lines. This is the appearance window, and this would let me come in and find my transform effect and edit it. So I could say, oh, I want you to scale down even more, like 50% between each other. Preview, see how much it changes, right? To that effect. So you can do that and keep coming in and changing them until you get it the way you want it to. But that doesn't let you edit it. So let's expand the appearance, grab both objects. Nope. Oh, because yeah, they're all separate objects now. So them being separate objects makes it difficult to do the Pathfinder to it. Pathfinder wants 2 objects at once. So if I come in and they're grouped, so let's ungroup them. Come here. All right, right click, ungroup our separate objects. Select all those guys, try to do it. It's not going to let you do it. Because of what I said about how it wants just 2 objects. If I grab that, it'll let me do that one. But that doesn't help us. We don't want to make like a triangle, like 10 different copies of this triangle to cut out of each of those shapes, right? That's kind of a pain. So what we can do is we can use a clipping mask, okay? And a clipping mask is the same sort of thing as like doing the cookie cutter, all right? So you select all your objects, and then you come to Object, Clipping Mask, Make. And so that's just like doing a layer mask in Photoshop, right? Where we have a shape that's on top of other shapes, and then we hit Image Mask, and it cuts that shape out and gives us a little window to where we can only see that shape. So we still have all of our shapes here. If we come to our layers, you can see it. Let me make my options bigger here. So you can see we've got this like, here's that shape, but if I hit that drop down, it shows me all the different shapes that make up that shape. So there's a triangle and then all those thinner bars, okay? And that would give us a nice little gradient, geometric gradient. You could do the same thing for, like I could actually come in here and say, oh, I want to copy all of these, right? So I'm holding Shift and Option to select. Ugh, I just did something. There we go. Shift and Option to select each of these individual ones, but not the triangle. And then I'm just going to hit Command C to copy it, deselect everything, hit Command V. I have all those shapes again. There it is. So maybe I want a circle now. The ellipse tool. If you hold Shift and Option, you will make a circle. If you just drag out, you're going to make an ellipse. Option makes it expand from the center. If I let go of Option, it expands from right or left or top or bottom or whatever. So here, and then I'm going to move it down. Right? Oops. Grab both those again. Command 7 is the keyboard shortcut for the clipping mask. That gives me now a circle geometric. Right? But if you really like regular old gradients with color and stuff, you can also do this. Grab a shape, lay out your shape, grab your gradient tool, and sorry, you got to fill it with a gradient first. Yeah. Give me my gradient options. Oh, there we go. So pick a gradient effect for your shape. So there's a bunch of them. Well, there's 4 of them. There's different types. There's radial and linear. Photoshop actually has more gradients, which I find hilarious. But you can come down here and double click on the color down here to change it up. So if you kind of know the type of gradient you want, you can click in here and add different gradient points to get different effects. Like maybe you want to really change it. I don't know. I think, what was this one? Red. Let's go green. In the middle. Let's do that. Then you can kind of change how they mix. Maybe it skews one way more than the other. You know, however you want to make that work. You can adjust the opacity, so maybe they get transparent. It's really up to you. But using this gradient tool is how you pull out and expand. And you can also, it's a little interactive, so you can kind of change how it mixes as well. But if you want to set these up, you can do this, and then you can use your clipping mask again to give it different shapes. So I've got a little square there. Maybe I want, actually, yeah, cool. It was in my clipboard. So maybe now I want to cut these out of the gradient. Oh yeah, it only works for the one. That's right. So because it's one object, it only works for the one. I wonder if I can unite these. Let's try uniting them and see if that works. I think they need to be connected. Oh, it was there. They need to be connected, but we're gonna try it. Hey, united into one shape. Awesome. And that didn't work. Come here. It did work, but just a sec. Redo it. There we go. Oh, it gives each one individual. I don't like that. I was hoping I could get just like the gradient cut out of that one shape. So never mind, not gonna work. At least with that complex shape, you can, still draw this and then take another shape, or you can apply that gradient to any other shape. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, a square or something. So you just have to have it out. But if you wanted to take like our fish here, if I wanted the fish to have this gradient tool, or this gradient applied to them, you can, because it's a shape and an object now, I can apply it this way and then grab my gradient tool and sort of drag out and change how, maybe I want it to come from here, change how that is being applied. Does that make sense, everybody? All right, how you can do that. Oops. So you can get something like that for your color. So, are there any questions so far? I feel like this is enough to get you guys started. I want you to spend the rest of the day just sketching, okay, on paper. Don't open up Illustrator yet. Don't mess with it yet, unless you're a wizard and you sketch out your idea right away and you show it to me and you're like, yeah, I'm good to go. I'm like, okay. And you can get into Illustrator. All right? All right.